The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 43. Claire knew very well in her heart that if she let her mother know that the father was partying with Miking and their old classmates, she would definitely be so angry. At this time, she was already very emotional, and she couldn't say anything to add fuel to the fire. So she said, it should be a gathering with his old classmates. I am not too clear about the specifics. Maybe it is the last time. It's not quite right. Elaine said with a black face, his old classmates can't get together once in a few years. It is impossible to get together again in a short time and go again. This time there must be a different opportunity. Claire could only lie against her will. I don't know this too well. Elaine gritted her teeth with anger, and said coldly, I have suffered so much inside, and he still has the mind to go to party with others, really heartless. Claire had no choice but to speak for her father, saying against her will, Mom, during the 2 days you disappeared, Dad was also very anxious. I don't believe it. Elaine said sternly, he said that he would separate from me 2 days ago. I went in without the separation. I guess he doesn't know how happy he is. Claire hurriedly said, Mom, don't speculate about Dad like this. As she was talking, Jacob drove his BMW 530 to the hospital. Seeing Elaine's horrible look, Jacob was also stunned. Although he has no feelings for Elaine in his heart, he has lived under Elaine's lust for so many years that his heart is still very timid towards Elaine. So the fundamental reason why Elaine quickly turned the other way around when he called. When Elaine saw Jacob, her anger went wild. There is no other reason. The main reason is that Jacob's dressing up is really too careful, with a decent suit, a decent tie, and his hair meticulously combed. At first glance, he has been well dressed for a long time. Elaine is not a fool. She immediately realized that Jacob's dressing up today was definitely not for herself, but for the party. This made her suddenly become extremely alert. She began to speculate, what are the important elements of this party that would make Jacob dress so seriously for the first time? From the time she married him to the present, except for the day of the wedding, she seemed to have never seen him dressed up so vigorously. When Jacob arrived, he asked, Where did you go? How did you make it like this? Elaine observed at him coldly, and blurted out, You tell me the truth, who are you partying with? Jacob's expression was a little unnatural, and he said falteringly, Isn't it the same classmates in my class before? You all know it. Elaine asked, Didn't you just visit the other day? Why did you meet again? Jacob said, Didn't we just go to more than 20 people last time, but today there are a few more people. Oh. Elaine frowned and asked sternly, Jacob, let me ask you, is Miking here? Jacob suddenly panicked. He didn't expect that Elaine would be able to ask Miking all of a sudden. This woman's intuition is really a bit too accurate, right? However, he must not dare to say anything about Miking to Elaine, so he lied, No, she has been away for more than 20 years and has never come back. Elaine asked coldly, Really not? Jacob hurriedly said, Oh, I really didn't. Why would I lie to you, and now you care about whether this is turning the cart before the horse? The most important thing now is to look at your injury. Is your leg broken? Elaine was patronizing to find out about Jacob's affairs. She couldn't even take care of her already injured and broken leg. After being reminded by Jacob, she remembered the pain in her right leg. So she hurriedly said to Claire, "Good girl, take Mom to see a doctor, don't let Mom leave any disability." After leaving the emergency room and seeing the doctor, Claire asked nervously, "Doctor, how is my mother's situation?" Elaine was afraid that she would have 3 long and 2 shortcomings, and hurriedly asked, "Yes, doctor, how is the result of the examination?" "I won't be a lame," the doctor said to Elaine. "From the X-rays, you have a comminuted fracture of your calf. The condition is more serious, but if you take good care of your injury, you should not be lame. I suggest you get a cast first and then be hospitalized for observation. About half a month, before that we can guarantee nothing." Elaine was relieved when she heard that she would not become lame, but when she heard that she needed to be hospitalized, she was immediately anxious. "Ah! Why I am going to be hospitalized? After the cast, can I go home and recuperate?" The thought that she hadn't lived in the luxurious Thompson first-class mansion until now, Elaine felt aggrieved. After 2 days of inhuman torture, she dreamed of returning to the big villa, lying on the soft big bed, and feeling the joy of living in Thompson. The doctor shook his head and said, "The first half-month of the cast is very important. It is related to your overall recovery. If you go home, if something goes wrong and one is not dealt with in time, it may be the root cause of the disease." Upon hearing this, Elaine's face suddenly filled with loss. However, Jacob on the side was full of joy. Elaine came back suddenly, and it was irreversible for him, but if Elaine could be hospitalized, he could relax for a few more days. Therefore, he deliberately said to Elaine, "Wife, you can follow the doctor's arrangement and stay in the hospital with peace of mind, so as to avoid leaving the root of the disease in the future." Elaine frowned and looked at Jacob, and asked, "What? You just don't want me to go home?" Jacob hurriedly waved his hand, "I didn't mean that." Elaine snorted coldly, remembering something, and then hurriedly asked Charlie, "Didn't you happen to know the genius Dr. Tian Kai? You immediately call him and ask him to come and treat my leg." Charlie's brows suddenly frowned upon hearing the tone of his mother-in-law's order. For a biche like Elaine, still want Tian Kai to treat her legs? Charlie sneered in his heart, and said indifferently, "Mr. Shi is not in Oris Hill for the time being, he has gone to East Cliff to treat someone." Upon hearing this, Elaine immediately said, "Then I will wait for him to come back." Charlie said, "She may not be able to come back in 10.5 months. The doctor said, you have to put a plaster first, no matter what." Elaine said immediately, "Okay. Then put a cast first, and I will go home and rest after the cast." When Jacob saw Elaine insist on being so persistent, he knew that it was impossible for her to be hospitalized. He couldn't help but secretly conceal the news of Miking's return from her for a while. He mentions divorce, then she will definitely not agree. That being the case, it is better to go back at night and find a chance to divorce her first. It is best to let her divorce first. After Elaine got cast in the People's Hospital, Jacob drove home to rest. Along the way, Elaine kept scolding Jacob next to him, and at the same time beating on the side, trying to figure out why he dressed himself so glamorously for the party today. However, Jacob's mouth was tighter than a safe. He just wanted to wait for a good time tonight to discuss the divorce with Elaine, so he must not let Elaine know about miking before that. In the other car, Charlie drove Claire with red eyes, and drove unhurriedly behind Jacob's car. Claire was very sympathetic to her mother. After all, she was a son and daughter. Anyone who saw the mother suffered so many injuries and so many tortures would feel uncomfortable. In addition, one thing that worries her is the relationship between her father and mother. She knew that her father liked miking. Compared with miking, her mother was far behind, so she was worried that her father would finally give up the current marriage and pursue his own happiness. Charlie saw the wife on the side with a sad face, and was about to persuade her, when he suddenly received a call from Isaac. Isaac asked him on the phone, "Mr. Wade, have you received your mother-in-law?" Because his wife was by his side, Charlie couldn't speak too clearly, so he said vaguely, "Yes." Isaac said, "That's good." After speaking, he said again, "By the way, Mr. Wade, I heard a news." Charlie asked, "What news?" Isaac said, "The Wu family in Suzhou seems to be looking for your antagonist everywhere. They even sent someone to East Cliff to find Fredman. They seem to have sent someone to Chenbai Mountain to find young Zheng and Barana, the father and son. But it was discovered by the people arranged by Mr. Orville, so they fled early." Charlie couldn't help but frowned. The Wu family suddenly contacted Fredman, and even contacted the Wei family and his son. There was only one possibility, that is, they wanted to unite more of his mortal enemies to deal with him. Since Regner and Roger, father and son, were insulted and fled back to Suzhou, the Wu family did nothing. He thought they had realized that they were not something they could afford, but he did not expect that they were actually darkness that follows you in the light. Charlie asked, "Who else did they contact?" Isaac said, "The Wu family also sent people to contact those who have been taught by others before, but they are all low-level rags, and can't make waves if they want to, just like the one who bullied your classmate Darren. Dogmen and women and their fathers." Afterwards, Isaac asked, "Mr. Wade, do you want me to say hello to the family and kill the Wu family directly, or let the family warn the Wu family so that they can be honest in the future?" "No," Charlie said with a smile, "I don't want others to help." Charlie is not ready to return to Wade's house yet. He even feels that he does not necessarily have to return to Wade's house in the future. After all, he has been away from the Wade family for so many years, and to be honest, although he can't talk about a deep hatred with the Wade family, there is still a hurdle in heart, and that hurdle was the accidental death of his parents that year. Therefore, he said to Isaac, "Some things are more interesting if you have to do it yourself. Relying on others for help is not only unreliable, but also takes away a lot of fun." Isaac hurriedly said, "But young master, the Wu family is in the whole Oris Hill. It has a top-notch existence. If they are really deliberate about going against you, I'm afraid you can't handle it alone." Charlie smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry about this. Although I am not a very talented person, I am not a soft persimmon that everyone can pinch." Isaac sighed and said, "Mr. Wade, you still have to be more careful, and you must not neglect the Wu family. The Wu family has only offered a reward of 300 million to kill Lu Guang and Lu Ming, the father and son. Countless people are chasing down the father and son all over the world. Once they are exposed, they may be hacked to death by countless people. Charlie asked curiously, "Does anyone know where the father and son have gone?" Isaac said, "It is said that they went abroad, but no one knows which country they went to, because they seem to have used fake passports when they left." Charlie nodded. Although he didn't say anything, he knew in his heart that the reason why the Wu family wanted to hunt down the father and son was actually because of the crosstalk on the YouTube. The Wu family had been deliberately trying to delete the crosstalk, but because it has now been bought by Steven, they had no choice. Because of the crosstalk, the entire Wu family has no face and cannot be deleted, so the only way to find face is to kill both Lu Guang and his son, so that the world knows that the Wu family is definitely not insulted. Isaac said at this time, "Mr. Wade, the Wu family is willing to spend 300 million or more to deal with Lu Guang and his son. If it is to deal with you, I believe they will be willing to pay a higher price, so you must be careful." Charlie said lightly, "Okay, I get it." Isaac said, "Mr. Wade, if you need any help, please tell me." Charlie gave a hum, quietly glanced at his wife next to him, and said to Isaac, "I'm on my way home now, I'll talk about it later." "Master, okay." Charlie hung up the phone, and Claire asked curiously, "Who was calling? What are you talking about, for help or not, for soft persimmons but not soft persimmons, is anyone going to bully you?" "No," Charlie smiled and said, "Didn't our mother be bullied by the MLM organization, so I plan to find friends to see if I can help mother." Claire hurriedly said, "Don't." She said, "To be honest, my mother has suffered so many sins. Although it is pitiful, I am a daughter who is fair to her. She also takes the blame. She takes money too seriously. And always think of taking shortcuts for nothing. Even if she didn't fall for this one today, she will still fall for something else tomorrow." Charlie nodded in agreement. He didn't expect that although Claire was somewhat filial to Elaine, she still knew at least what kind of person Elaine was. At first, helping Elaine to vent her anger was just to find an excuse. Seeing that Claire said this, he did not continue to talk about this topic. At this moment, Charlie's mind was thinking of Wu's family in Suzhou. Since the Wu family's father and son are still obsessed with their previous experience, sooner or later they will come to avenge. But there is a problem. It is a bit beyond his expectations. The Wu family and his sons are very arrogant in doing things, and seek revenge. Why do they need to find a helper? When they contact Fredman and other people who have offended him, they should just want to unite a few more enemies to target him. This is a bad signal to Charlie. Because the enemy is always easy to defeat when he is proud. But when the enemy is no longer proud, they will become more cunning and more difficult to deal with. The Wu family has a strong strength, and now they have to unite others to deal with him, which proves that they have made great progress now and deserve his attention. 2 BMW cars, one after the other, returned to Thompson's big villa. Jacob was scolded all the way by Elaine, and his dissatisfaction grew stronger. When he first received a call from Elaine, he was singing a love song with his first love, so he was guilty of conscience. He became angry when he heard her and went to the hospital in a hurry. But after calming down, he felt more and more that Elaine was really hopeless. Therefore, Jacob's idea of divorcing her became stronger. After getting out of the car, Jacob abducted the one bought from the hospital to Elaine directly from the back row. Elaine was still waiting for him to help him in, even carrying her in, but she didn't expect him to pass a crutch directly. Elaine squeezed on the crutches and cursed in place, "Jacob, my leg is broken, you throw me a crutches." Jacob said, "Anyway, you have to get used to crutches sooner or later, otherwise, what do you do if you go to the bathroom?" "What's the matter?" Elaine asked angrily. "What do you mean? I won't be able to count on you in the future." Jacob said with a black face, "Don't forget, we two have separated." Elaine immediately wanted to yell at him. At this moment, Charlie happened to park in front. When Claire got out of the car, Elaine immediately complained to her. With the mentality of turning big things into small things, Claire hurriedly supported her and comforted her. "Oh, Mom, don't be angry with Dad. Your body will be bad, and your body will be bad if you get angry." Elaine still wanted to curse, but suddenly felt dizzy in her brain, and immediately realized that she had been hungry for too long and was about to pass out of hypoglycemia. So she said weakly, "Oh, I'm going to die, I'm starving to death, where is Charlie? Hurry up and cook for me." "I want to eat braised pork and beef stew," Charlie said blankly. "I haven't had time to buy groceries today. I only have some noodles at home. Should I make a bowl of noodles for you?" Elaine blurted out, "I've been hungry for 2 days and 2 nights. What's the use of a bowl of noodles?" Charlie said lightly, "Then I will go shopping now." As soon as Elaine heard this, she said in a hurry, "I will be fainted with hunger when you buy it." Charlie asked, "Why don't I order you a takeaway?" Elaine blurted out, "It takes half an hour or even 40 minutes to take out. Cook the noodles and knock 2 more eggs." Charlie said casually, "There are no eggs, I haven't bought them yet." Elaine said, "Will you give me a taste? Give me some green vegetables. I haven't eaten any vegetables in the past 2 days, and my mouth on the fire is rotten." Charlie shrugged and said, "There is nothing but dried noodles at home. If you want to eat, I will give you a bowl of clear noodle soup." Elaine stomped angrily, pointed at Charlie and asked Claire, "Claire, is this waste deliberately against me? Why is there nothing at home?" Claire looked embarrassed. Charlie said at this time, "We have been looking for you for the past 2 days. He didn't cook at all at home, so he didn't go shopping." Elaine was angry and uncomfortable, but now she didn't have the strength to get angry with him, so she said to Charlie, "Then you quickly get me a bowl of noodles." Charlie responded and walked to the kitchen. In fact, there was a box of eggs in the refrigerator, but he didn't want to feed them to Elaine, so he smashed all the eggs out and poured them into the sewer. Although pouring them into the sewer is a waste, if it gets into Elaine's stomach, more wasteful. Then he used a pot to boil some hot water, grabbed a handful of noodles, and threw it in. Just when he was perfunctory, the phone suddenly received a WeChat message. He opened WeChat and found that there was someone in the chat group of Oris Hill Welfare Institute. The 20th and 30th people in this group were all taken in by Aunt Lena and raised up orphans, but now everyone has been in the society for many years, and many people are scattered all over the country. The connection is not too close. Charlie clicked to open the group. The message was sent by a girl named Xiao Fen Li in the orphanage. The content read, "Secretly tell everyone a good news, Aunt Lena has recovered from illness and has returned to Oris Hill." Xiao Fen is a little girl Charlie met in the orphanage. This little girl was abandoned by her parents not long after she was born. She was raised by Aunt Lena, 2 or 3 years younger than Charlie, and she was a little sister in Charlie's eyes. Aunt Lena didn't know what her surname was, so she asked her to name her Xiao Fen. After Xiao Fen became an adult, she worked with Aunt Lena in the orphanage, and was the only one who remained in the orphanage among the many friends that year. Seeing her saying that Aunt Lena has recovered from illness, Charlie hurriedly asked in the group, "Why didn't Aunt Lena tell us when she came back, so we might as well pick her up?" Xiao Fen said, "Brother Charlie, Aunt Lena said that she didn't want to cause you trouble, so no one told me. I also found out after she came back suddenly this afternoon." Charlie asked again, "How is Aunt Lena's health? Does she look okay?" "She just recovered and was discharged from the hospital. Won't she go back to work in the orphanage yet?" Xiao Fen said, "What kind of person Aunt Lena is, Brother Charlie, you must know better. How can she be free? She hasn't come to the orphanage for so long. She cares about the children in her heart." After speaking, Xiao Fen said again, "But I see Aunt Lena's body, and it feels pretty good. It doesn't look like someone who has been seriously ill at all. It should have been restored to its original condition." Charlie breathed a sigh of relief. After all, Stephen sent Aunt Lena to the best hospital in Eastcliff, and he also paid Aunt Lena $2 million in medical expenses, which included very high-end post-operative recovery. At this time, other people in the group also sent out messages. "Ah, Aunt Lena is discharged from the hospital? That's great. Haha, I knew that Aunt Lena is a good person, and she will definitely recover one day." At this moment, a person named Zhang Ming suddenly everyone in the group said, "Everyone, since Aunt Lena has recovered and discharged, then I suggest that our friends in Oris Hill now go to the welfare home to visit Aunt Lena, by the way find a restaurant and pick her up. What do you think?" "Yes, right, Zhang Ming, your idea is good. I'm getting off work soon, and I can go there anytime." "Yes, it is a happy event for Aunt Lena to recover from illness, we must visit her." In response, Xiao Fen sent a happy expression, saying, "That's what I mean by sending a message to everyone. Since we haven't seen Aunt Lena for a long time, and everyone hasn't seen each other for a long time, it's better to take this opportunity. We all join together and invite her to have a meal, so I believe Aunt will also be very happy." "Oh, you guys in Oris Hill, can't you wait for another day or two? Wait for us outsiders to rush back, or I will buy a plane ticket now and come tomorrow." That Zhang Ming said, receiving things like wind and dust, of course, is the most ceremonial feeling on the day of return. "Yes," a friend named Zhao Hao in the group said, "Aunt Lena got such a serious disease and finally healed it back. If we children raised by her, don't come to see her for the first time, maybe she will feel lost too." Zhang Ming said, "Well, let's find a 5-star hotel, and we must take care of Aunt Lena." Xiao Fen said, "Zhang Ming, let's not be so extravagant. Aunt Lena is thrifty all her life. If she goes to such a good place to eat, she will definitely feel distressed. Why don't we just serve home-cooked food at the entrance of the orphanage for many years? When Charlie thought of the home-style restaurant that had been in operation for more than 10 years, he couldn't help feeling sad. On his 18th birthday that year, Aunt Lena took the frugal money and took him and a few friends to eat a meal in that restaurant. She also bought a cake for him, and after celebrating his birthday, he no longer met the adoption regulations of the orphanage, so he entered the society alone. Now think about it, the meal he ate there was the most tender meal he had ever eaten in his life. So he immediately said, "I really didn't expect that restaurant is still open. The place Xiaofen chose is great. Then let's make an appointment there." Zhang Ming replied, "I said Charlie, everyone has been working for so many years, and they have some savings. Facing Aunt Lena, don't you need to be so stingy?" Charlie said, "I am not stingy, but respect Aunt Lena's habit. We ask Aunt Lena to go to a 5-star hotel. Aunt Lena may not be really happy. On the contrary, she may feel too extravagant and wasteful and will feel distressed for a long time." Zhang Ming said, "Cut, don't I know you yet? Don't you just want to save twos?" After speaking, Zhang Ming sent another voice, "Charlie, I know that you are not doing well. It is normal for you to be a son-in-law. It is normal to have no money in your pocket. But after all, Aunt Lena brought you up, with so much kindness. Even if you have some blood, what can you do if you join in and invite her to have a good meal?" Charlie couldn't help frowning. This Zhang Ming didn't deal with him when he was in the orphanage. At that time, Zhang Ming relied on that he was stronger than his peers and formed gangs in the orphanage, and he often got together to bully other children. Charlie was also targeted by the opponent, but because he had practiced some martial arts when he was at Wade's house in Eastcliff, most people were not his opponents at all, so when Zhang Ming brought someone to trouble him, a group of people were directly beaten by him. Them crying father, yelling mother, looking for teeth everywhere. From then on, Zhang Ming, with a very small mind, held a grudge against Charlie, sang everything against him, and targeted him everywhere. Moreover, this guy has always been wrong, and always caused trouble for the orphanage when he was young. He was caught stealing things several times, and in the end it was Aunt Lena who came forward to lose money and apologize to save him. Having not seen him for so many years, Charlie estimates that this person is not much better now. But Charlie didn't bother to be familiar with him, and said lightly, "Whatever you say, I still think it's best to go to the restaurant," Xiaofen said. Xiaofen also hurriedly said, "I think what Charlie said makes sense. Aunt Lena saved money all her life and asked her to go to a 5-star hotel for dinner. She must be uncomfortable." The childhood friend Zhao Hao also echoed, "I also support it." Others also agreed, so Xiaofen said, "Well, there are 10 people we can come over tonight, and 9 of them all support going to the old restaurant. Then we will be the minority and obey the majority. I will go to that restaurant now. Book a box. Come here too." "Good, good." Everyone agreed and happily agreed. Charlie couldn't help feeling a little excited when he thought of meeting Aunt Lena immediately. Since the old Mrs. Wilson passed her birthday and was scolded for borrowing money at the birthday banquet, He has never seen Aunt Lena again because Aunt Lena was directly sent to East Cliff by Stephen. Charlie has a deep relationship with Aunt Lena, almost treating her as his own mother. When Aunt Lena first became ill, Charlie desperately tried to get money everywhere, even secretly looking for options to sell blood, and also took a lot of private money from Claire in order to make Aunt Lena survive. If he hadn't done everything to help Aunt Lena raise money, Aunt Lena would have never waited for Stephen's appearance at the beginning, and she might have passed away. But Charlie felt that these were what he should do, and even so, he only paid back 1/10,000th of Aunt Lena's kindness to him. Dad had taught him countless times before his death that if a man is alive, he must know his gratitude. The ancients said that the grace of dripping water should be reported by the spring, and Charlie has always asked himself so. So, he didn't care, the noodles for Elaine were still boiling in the pot, so he took off his apron directly, stepped out of the kitchen, and said to Claire, who was accompanying Elaine, "Wife, I'm in a bit of a hurry hospital." Elaine immediately asked, "Have you cooked my noodles for me? I haven't eaten a bite of rice so far, so you want to go out?" Charlie glanced at her in disgust, and said impatiently, "The noodles are boiling in the pot, you can eat them out in a while. Aunt Lena has recovered from illness and I am going to pick her up." When Elaine heard this, she immediately scolded, "Wade, what is your attitude? For a lady in a welfare institution, you dare to talk to me like this? Do you still have the consciousness of being a son-in-law? Don't concern if I have something to eat, drink, wear, or live." As she said, Elaine sneered again, "What does it have to do with you even if that lady is dead?" Charlie has endured Elaine for a long time. He thought that this mother-in-law would go in for 2 days and suffer a little bit of sin, and she could change a little bit, but she didn't expect her to change at all. Even more unexpectedly, she dared to speak out to insult his benefactor Aunt Lena. So he looked at Elaine and said angrily, "I eat my own, drink my own, wear my own, live in my own. Don't forget, this house was given to me by someone else, and the furniture in it I bought it with the money I made from Feng Shui, so I have this attitude. If you are not satisfied, you can move out and live in the old house." When Elaine heard this, she was suddenly speechless. She wanted to scold Charlie, but when she thought about it, she found that what he said was not wrong. Now it's not before. He used to live in her small house. He couldn't make money without telling others, so she could scold him whatever she wanted. Now he has a good life. Someone gave him such an expensive villa and gave it to him after it was renovated, and he could earn millions by showing a Feng Shui. On the other hand, she is already penniless. If Charlie really turns his face with her and prevents her from living here, what can she do? Thinking of this, Elaine felt guilty. Looking at Charlie's angry expression, she was also a little nervous and afraid. However, she still tried to save the situation, so she immediately looked at Claire aggrievedly, and choked up, "Claire, your husband is too much. Is there any son-in-law in the world who talks to his mother-in-law like this? You don't care. He won't shake the sky if this continues." Unexpectedly, Claire said very seriously, "Mom, I think Charlie is right. Now we live in a villa given to him by others. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have had the chance to live in such a good place, so you can't treat him like you did before, it's not fair." When Elaine heard these words, she felt sad. In the past 2 days, everyone in the family seems to have changed their attitudes towards her. Her husband ignored her, and even took the initiative to start a fire with her. The son-in-law is no longer the son-in-law at the mercy of others. He even became angry with her and asked her to move back to the old house. Even the only good girl who relied on her was no longer facing herself. She never dreamed that her daughter would speak to Charlie at this time. She is a great dramatist. Seeing that she seems to be losing power in this home, she blushed in the blink of an eye and started acting. She choked pitifully, "Now it's unnecessary for me to be in this house. Your dad doesn't care about me. Your husband threatens to kick me out, even if you are not with me." With that, Elaine twitched her mouth and tears flowed down. Claire sighed helplessly, and said, "Mom, it was indeed you who was wrong just now. I can't look at you all the time." Although she felt sorry for her mother for having suffered so much, this was not the reason for her mother to shout to Charlie, nor the reason for insulting Aunt Lena. Moreover, Claire knew very well in her heart that her husband had been very pitiful since he was a child, and he did not have many real relatives in this world. Except for himself, it may be Aunt Lena. This is why Charlie desperately tried to get money to treat Aunt Lena some time ago. She knew that in Charlie's heart, he treated Aunt Lena as a mother. She has always admired Charlie's behavioral style of acknowledgement, otherwise she would not give him all her private money and let him take it to Aunt Lena. Therefore, she also felt that her mother was a bit too much, and naturally she could no longer speak to her at this time. At this time, Elaine was already crying with tears, and sighed, "My life is really pitiful. Does this family still have a place for me?" Charlie no longer wanted to watch her acting at this time, and even no longer wanted to be patient with her anymore, so he skipped her and said to Claire, "My wife, I'll go to the orphanage first. Eat at home." Claire hurriedly stood up and said, "I'll go with you. I haven't seen Aunt Lena for a long time. The last time I went to see Aunt Lena in the hospital was a few months ago. I still miss her." To say that Claire really fulfilled the duties and responsibilities of a good wife. Not only did she support Charlie treating Aunt Lena, she also often went to the hospital with him to visit and take care of Aunt Lena. Just like Charlie, she was very respectful to Aunt Lena. Aunt Lena also liked her very much, almost treating her as her daughter-in-law. Seeing that Claire was going to see Aunt Lena with herself, Charlie nodded with satisfaction and said, "Then let's go together. When Aunt Lena called me last time, she asked about you. I should miss you a lot." Claire stood up and said, "Then let's go now." As soon as Elaine heard that Claire was going to go with Charlie, she said pitifully, "Good daughter, are you angry with your mother? Do you even want to ignore your mother?" Claire looked at Elaine and said seriously, "Mom, I really hope you can reflect on this experience and change your personality. Otherwise, you will definitely suffer in the future." When Elaine heard her say this, she immediately sat on the ground and said, "What's the point of saying I'm alive? My only relative, my dear girl, is no longer facing me. The police shouldn't let me go. Come out and let me die in the detention center." If it were to be kept in the past, Claire would have softened and compromised when she saw her mother being so aggressive, but this time she understood that if her mother always had this character, then she would suffer a loss sooner. She can't condone her temperament anymore. So she said to Elaine, "Mom, think about it alone, I'll leave with Charlie first. By the way, Charlie also cooked the noodles for you. Don't forget to serve them out." After finishing speaking, she said to Charlie, "Let's go." Charlie nodded, took Claire out of the house, and drove her to the orphanage. On the way, Charlie bought a bunch of flowers, another fruit basket, and handwritten a greeting card for Aunt Lena. When he came to the gate of Oris Hill Welfare Institute, Charlie parked his car in the parking space on the side of the road. Looking at the slightly outdated gate, he was in a daze, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of time going back and space dislocation. He stood here, as if for an instant, he overlapped with certain scenes in his memory. The scenes that flashed continuously were the softest, happiest, and most precious memories deep in his heart. He still remembers the scene of his first visit to the orphanage. When he was 8 years old, he lost his parents and was displaced on the street. Aunt Lena, who was like an angel on earth, brought him here, then held him with one hand and pointed at the gate, saying very lovingly, "Child, don't be afraid, this will be your home from now on." Charlie still remembers this extremely warm scene even after many years. Thinking of this, Charlie's face also showed a rare happy expression, even the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. Seeing him with a smile, Claire couldn't help saying, "Today you seem to be very happy." Charlie nodded slightly and said, "Yeah, you know, since Aunt Lena became ill, I have always been particularly worried. I tried to get money everywhere, but I didn't collect enough medical expenses for the kidney transplant. Had it not been for a coincidence of fate, Aunt Lena would have left me." Claire recalled the scene when Charlie whispered to her grandma to borrow money from her grandma in order to collect medical expenses for Aunt Lena. At that time, he really felt sorry for this, since he was young, he had been ill-fated and left the man. It's a pity that he didn't have any ability at that time, and couldn't spend so much money to help. Fortunately, later, Aunt Lena, the G people had their own vision. Someone solved her medical expenses and sent her to the best Union hospital in the country for treatment. Thinking of this, Claire couldn't help asking, "By the way, you said that someone paid Aunt Lena all the medical expenses, who is that person? How could he be so generous?" "Aunt Lena went to Fairview for treatment. It costs at least 2 or 3 million for a trip, right?" Charlie nodded and said, "I heard that it cost a total of 3 million. As for who paid the money, I am not too sure, but I heard that it was also the person Aunt Lena had saved before." Of course Charlie couldn't say that the money for Aunt Lena's treatment was paid by himself, because at that time he was still a standard porcelain. It was impossible to get a huge sum of 3 million, so he couldn't explain it clearly. So he could only sigh, "I knew that showing others how to make money by showing feng shui, I should try it when your aunt was sick." The two were talking, a pleasantly surprised voice suddenly sounded in their ears, "Brother Charlie." When he turned around and looked around, he saw a tall and thin figure in the orphanage. It turned out to be Xiao Fen. After a few years of absence, Xiao Fen has become a big girl. She is in her early 20s. She is more than 1.7 meters tall, and her figure is no less than that of those models. Although the dress is very simple and plain, and the face is facing the sky, it can give people a crystal clear, icy, and clean feeling. Charlie couldn't help but marvel at her. It's really the 18th change. Is this still the little girl who had been a follower in the orphanage back then? Seeing Charlie, Xiao Fen's face was filled with joy and surprise. She ran to Charlie quickly, still grabbing Charlie's arm with both hands as before, and asked delicately, "Brother Charlie, why didn't you come back to the orphanage for so long?" Charlie didn't feel uncomfortable when she was grabbed by her arm. On the contrary, like an older brother, he said with affection, "I have never been mixed up since I went out, so I am embarrassed to return to the orphanage to see you." As soon as Xiao Fen heard this, her big eyes flashed red, and she choked up and said, "Aunt Lena told us that you have been working on a construction site since you went out, and all your hard-earned money was sent to Aunt Lena. Asked Aunt Lena to buy us books, clothes, and food, but you never come back to see me. It has been so many years, and I have never seen you again." With that, Xiao Fen burst into tears and said, "When Aunt Lena was sick, I heard Aunt Lena say that you often visit her, but every time we came you left, you deliberately hide. If you didn't want to see us, you don't know how uncomfortable our brothers and sisters felt." Charlie couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. Since he came out of the orphanage, he really hasn't had a good life. He has been busy working on the construction site before, 365 days a year, 365 days a year, all year round, except for filling his stomach, all the rest is sent. Gave it to Aunt Lena. The reason why he was reluctant to return to the orphanage was because he was too bad at that time. He didn't want these younger brothers and sisters who had not yet entered the society to see him in despair, and then set a bad example for them. Later, he joined the Wilson family and became the famous son-in-law of Oris Hill. He was even more embarrassed to return to the orphanage. Knowing that Aunt Lena was sick, he was more worried than anyone else, and more concerned than anyone else. He was still not as embarrassed, facing the friends in these orphanages. Later, although he had money, he got the Wade family and got 10 billion, and also got the Emgrand group, but the aunt has not been in the orphanage during this time, so he didn't come back. After Charlie had money, he had always thought of donating money to the orphanage. After Aunt Lena came back, he would find a suitable reason and excuse to donate a large sum of money to the orphanage. The reason why he agreed to come with everyone to pick up the dust for Aunt Lena, in addition to wanting to see Aunt Lena, he also wanted to see what kind of method he could use to donate a sum of money to the orphanage without being suspected. It was also the first time that Claire followed Charlie back to the orphanage, so it was also the first time she saw Xiao Fen. While she was surprised by Xiao Fen's youthful beauty, she also felt that Xiao Fen and her husband seemed a little too intimate. However, she soon comforted herself. This little girl saw that the little sister who grew up with Charlie before, regarded Charlie as her own brother, and there was nothing unusual about being intimate. Seeing Xiao Fen's tears, Charlie said, "Xiao Fen, your brother has not been messing well these years. I don't want you to see your brother's desolation, but now it's different. Your brother is doing pretty well now, too. I finally have a face, and I'm back to see you." As he said, he took Claire's hand and said with a smile, "Come on, let me introduce to you, this is your sister-in-law. How is she? Is she beautiful?" Claire was suddenly grabbed by Charlie, and she felt a little nervous. Although she and Charlie have been married for more than 3 years, to be honest, the two did not act too intimately. But she didn't draw her hand back, just let him hold it. Xiao Fen looked at Claire, and a look of envy suddenly appeared in her somewhat sad eyes. Looking at Claire, she couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Although she looks good, but compared with Claire, she seems to be a little bit worse. Moreover, she's just an orphan with no father, no mother, and no support. The current work in the orphanage is half work and half charitable, and there is not much money to be made. Even with the limited balance, she, like Charlie, had all donated to the orphanage, so she was a poor girl. In this way, she felt that she was naturally much worse than Claire's career women. With a heart of envy, she said to Claire a little nervously, "Hello sister-in-law, my name is Xiao Fen, we meet for the first time." Claire nodded and said with a smile, "Hello Xiao Fen, my name is Claire." Xiao Fen looked at Claire and exclaimed, "Sister-in-law, I really envy you." After speaking, she glanced at Charlie again, and said, "Envy you to find my brother Charlie such a good man." Charlie suddenly became embarrassed. He thought that Xiao Fen would say that he envied Claire for being beautiful, or envied her for her good figure and good temperament. Unexpectedly, she envied Claire for finding herself. It's worthy of being a younger sister who grew up with her. Even if she knew she was poor and white, she still felt very good. When Claire heard this, some of them couldn't laugh or cry. Xiao Fen said very seriously, "Sister-in-law, Charlie brother is the best man in the world. You must treat him well. He has been very responsible since he was a child, taking special care of us brothers and sisters. After leaving the orphanage at the age of 18, he has been working hard on the construction site and all the money he earned has been given to our younger brothers and sisters to improve our lives and provide for us to study. Back then, the orphanage raised so many people, and only Charlie knows the rewards." One brother. "Sister-in-law, tell me, is my brother Charlie the best man in the world?" Claire was surprised at hearing. She only knew that Charlie had a hard life before marrying her. Grandpa found it on the construction site, but she didn't know that Charlie actually worked at the construction site at the age of 18, and she didn't know that Charlie gave all the money. They were donated to the orphanage. No wonder he was penniless when she married him. He even asked grandfather for money for a haircut before the wedding. Coupled with his behavior of raising money for Aunt Lena's crazy treatment of illness, Claire suddenly felt that her husband also had a great side. She couldn't help asking Charlie, "Why have you never told me this?" Charlie said indifferently, "Hey, what can I tell people about the poor days?" After speaking, Charlie didn't want to talk more on this topic, and hurriedly turned the topic off and asked Xiao Fen, "By the way, Xiao Fen, where is Aunt Lena?" Xiao Fen said, "Aunt Lena is talking to the dean about work. She asked to entertain you first, and she will come in a while." With that said, Xiao Fen asked expectantly, "Brother Charlie, would you like to go to the orphanage? You haven't come back for a long time. Charlie has lived in this welfare institution for the past 10 years from 8 to 18, and he has great affectionate for it. It's just that he has been a little destitute and have no face to come back. Now that he has a lot of money, he might as well go in and see what other needs are in the orphanage, and can help solve it when the time comes." So he nodded and agreed, and said, "Then let's go in for a while." Xiaofen was overjoyed, and hurriedly grabbed Charlie's arm, and dragged him in front. Charlie could only let her drag herself while holding his wife Claire's hand. Claire's heart beat faster, but she still let her lead into the orphanage. The Oris Hill Welfare Institute was built in the last century and has a history of several decades. The buildings here are also relatively low brick buildings, and each building is almost decades old. Charlie saw that this place was basically the same as when he lived many years ago, so he couldn't help asking Xiaofen, did the orphanage have not been expanded or renovated in these years? Xiaofen said, wanted to expand, but the funding has been tight. We have more children here than before. Both the Dean and Aunt Lena feel that it is better to spend the money on the children. As for the hardware conditions, it can save money. Charlie looked at the yard, but the slides, seesaws, and swivel chairs that had been rusted on, felt familiar and somewhat unpleasant in his heart. These toys were all played when he was young, that is to say, they have been at least 20 years old. Those younger brothers and sisters after him are still playing with these limited and old toys. Charlie couldn't help but blame himself. Before Stephen found him, he was always worried about Aunt Lena's body and tried every means to treat Aunt Lena. After Stephen found him, he had been thinking about it all this time. Do everything possible to get back the dignity. But during this period of time, he did not expect to donate a sum of money to the orphanage to help the younger brothers and sisters in the orphanage to improve their living environment. It is really inexcusable. Thinking of this, Charlie planned to donate tens of millions to the orphanage to renovate the entire orphanage, and then buy the best toys, the best learning venues, and the best learning equipment for the younger brothers and sisters. All computers and iPads must be bought for them. Claire didn't know Charlie. The mood at the moment was very complicated and self-blaming. She was very curious to observe the environment of the orphanage. Although it was the first time to come in, she still felt that it was very kind. Kind, maybe because my husband grew up here since he was a child. In fact, in Claire's heart, she never regarded Charlie as her contracted husband. In her heart, Charlie was her real and legal husband. Xiaofen took Charlie to the dormitory area of the orphanage, and Charlie found the dormitory where he lived at a glance. Looking in through the window, he saw a dozen or 2-year-old children playing under the leadership of an aunt in the orphanage. He couldn't help but exclaimed, "Xiaofen, why are there so many such young children in the orphanage now?" Xiaofen said, "Many irresponsible parents send their children directly to the orphanage after they give birth. Some of these children are abandoned by them because they are born with disabilities or diseases. Like me, maybe it was because I was a girl, so I was abandoned." Speaking of this, Xiaofen couldn't help sighing. Later, she said angrily, "There are still some children in there. They were abducted by traffickers and then rescued by the police. Because the children are too young to find their parents, they can only be fostered at first. In the orphanage, after finding their parents, they will be sent back to their families." Charlie saw that some of these children had some physical disabilities, so he couldn't help asking, "Xiaofen, what is going on with disabled children? Is it congenital disabilities?" "No," Xiaofen said indignantly, "these were all rescued from the traffickers. They were originally healthy children, but after being stolen by the traffickers, they didn't sell these children, but got them and made them disabled." After becoming disabled, they took these children along the street to beg. Such children have been destroyed by them all their lives, but they have become their cash cows. When Claire heard this, she suddenly angrily said, "These people are 2J3RK, how can they turn good children into disabled people?" Xiao Fen said, "There are some such bad guys who specialize in this kind of conscience. They are normal people with hands and feet, but they pretend to be disabled and beg everywhere." Later, they found that the begging stuff came in too quickly. Therefore, in order to make more money, they deliberately find some disabled people to increase their credibility. Later, if they can't find the disabled, they buy the children. After buying, the children are disabled, so that it is easier to beg. After hearing this, Claire trembled with anger, and blurted out, "All of them should be shot." Charlie sighed at this time and said, "Actually, when I was working on the construction site, I had heard of the existence of beggar gangs. They were all fellow villagers or relatives. They organized groups to beg in big cities. Some of them were extremely cruel, specializing in poisoning minors." After speaking, Charlie said to her again, "You forgot that we watched an Indian movie 2 years ago. The name was Millionaire in the Slum. There was not a leader of a gang of beggars who sang good children. Blind his eyes, make him blind and let him sing and beg along the street. It looks like this kind of thing is far away from us, but it often happens around us." Claire said angrily, "Unexpectedly, there are such demons around us. I knew I had gone to the police academy to be a police officer, and I could still bring these bad guys to justice." Xiao Fen sighed, "Sister-in-law, the key is that there is too much profit margins, so many people have to make this money even if they risk being shot." With that, she felt that the topic was a bit heavy, and she said, "Oh, it's getting late, let's go to the restaurant first, the other friends should have arrived." Charlie nodded and said, "Let's go to the restaurant first." The three came out of the orphanage together, and Charlie asked Xiao Fen on the side, "By the way, Xiao Fen, are there any difficulties in the orphanage recently?" Xiao Fen smiled and said, "The difficulties have always been there, but they are okay, and they can be carried. The children's living conditions are much better than when we were younger, but the only downside is that our classrooms, the dormitory and the cafeteria are all too old. The dean has been applying for funding, hoping to renovate it, but the superiors have been saying that the finances are tight and they cannot allocate funds for the time being." Charlie nodded lightly and wrote down her words in his heart. When the three of them came out of the orphanage, just about to go to the restaurant, a pleasantly surprised voice suddenly sounded in their ears, "Charlie, Xiao Fen." When the two turned around to look, they saw several figures walking towards them. These people are all the little friends who grew up with him in the orphanage. However, for Charlie, there are many people in it, and they have basically never seen him since he left the orphanage. The only one who still had contact after leaving the orphanage was his little friend, Zhao Hao. In the early years, when Charlie was living in the orphanage, due to the accidental death of his parents, his personality became reticent, even a little withdrawn, and he might not speak a word to others for days. Because of his incompatibility, he is often isolated by other children. Charlie remembered that whenever he was isolated, Zhao Hao, who was a little older than him, would always be the first to stand up and play with him. So over the years, the relationship between the two has been very deep. Zhao Hao and Charlie are the same age, but Zhao Hao is a few months older than him. The two people came out of the orphanage, and then they both chose to go to the construction site to work together, suffer together, becoming standard hard brothers. However, the difference between Zhao Hao and Charlie is that Charlie made money, and all of it was secretly given to the orphanage, while Zhao Hao saved some money himself, then left the construction site and went to Hiken to do a little business. For Charlie, Zhao Hao's approach is understandable. After all, everyone is an orphan, and most of them are helpless when they come out of the orphanage. Everyone wants to make some money to lay a foundation for themselves, because orphans are not like others. Others have parents, relatives, and a house that can shelter from wind and rain. Orphans have nothing. If you run out of money today, you won't be able to eat today, and you can only sleep on the street at night. The reason why Charlie didn't think about him after leaving the orphanage was mainly because of his father's teachings to him that year, which made him feel that he could live to be 18 years old. It was already the orphanage and Aunt Lena's kindness to him, of course. Find a way to repay. Moreover, this has a lot to do with Charlie's childhood education. In his childhood, Charlie was the young master of the Wade family from childhood. He received the education of Confucianism and classic Chinese studies. Therefore, in his bones, there is a kind of dedication spirit of ancient Confucianism and compassion. This is what makes him different from everyone in the orphanage. At this moment, Zhao Hao stepped forward with excitement, and said excitedly, "Charlie, my good brother, we haven't seen in a long time." Back then, he and Charlie slept in the shed on the construction site together, carried cement together and moved bricks together. The two supported each other and walked all the way for several years. Later, Zhao Hao saved tens of thousands, and met a girl he liked on the construction site, and followed that girl to Hiken. After a few years of absence, Charlie couldn't help feeling a little excited, saying, "Zhao Hao, we haven't seen each other for 3 or 4 years. How have you been in Hiken over the past few years?" When Zhao Hao heard Charlie's question at this time, he laughed and said, "I am okay, I am okay. Let's say, have enough food and clothing." Charlie asked again, "Where is the girl you met on the construction site? Are you two married?" "Hey!" A trace of sadness flashed between Zhao Hao's eyebrows, but he smiled indifferently, "Get married. It's been a relationship for 2 or 3 years, but this is not about marriage, I can't afford it." "What kind of gift? I can't afford to buy a house. The woman's parents look down on me, and they often blow the wind around her ears, and she won't look down on me when she listens to them," and then she broke off with me. Charlie frowned and asked, "When is this?" Zhao Hao smiled slightly and said, "Just last month." Charlie nodded and said, "It is her loss for not choosing you." After finishing speaking, he said, "By the way, I haven't asked you yet, aren't you in Hiken? Why did you come to Oris Hills so quickly?" Zhao Hao smiled and said, "It's very coincidental that the unit arranged for me to come over for a business trip. I just arrived in the afternoon. I just got off the bus and saw that you were chatting in the group, and then I hurried over." Charlie asked curiously, "Aren't you doing business by yourself? Why did you work again?" Zhao Hao smiled bitterly, and said, "Business has been dry, How can the business be so good now, especially in the past 2 years? The economic situation is not good, and it is not easy to do anything. After speaking, he looked at Claire and smiled. Charlie, is this your? Charlie nodded and said, this is my wife, Claire. After speaking, he introduced Claire again. Claire, this is Zhao Hao, my best friend in the orphanage. Zhao Hao smiled and said, Charlie, you are really blessed, your wife is so beautiful. Claire smiled and said, thank you. Zhao Hao nodded, and then pretended to complain to Charlie, Charlie, you are not kind. You haven't taken the initiative to contact us for several years. After Aunt Lena suffered from uremia, I heard Aunt Lena say, you often visit her, but you avoid our brothers and sisters every time. Why? Charlie smiled and said seriously, the past few years have not been very good, I didn't want everyone to see it. Charlie also has self-esteem. Since marrying Claire, he has often been ridiculed by people, saying that he is a rubbish, a rag, and a live-in son-in-law. Although he is not surprised how people think of him, he does not want to let him be with him since childhood. These little friends who grew up together know their dilemma. Zhao Hao said seriously, my dear brother, we lived in a shack on a construction site for a long time. A steamed bun can be broken in half and a person can break in half. Why are you embarrassed in front of me? Brother, I've been unhappy in the past few years. Look at me, don't I still laugh every day? Charlie nodded slightly. At this time, Xiao Fen also looked at Zhao Hao with a smile, and said, Brother Zhao Hao, why don't you say hello to me? Zhao Hao saw Xiao Fen and observed at her for a long time before he was surprised and said, You are Xiao Fen. Like Charlie, Zhao Hao has never returned after leaving the orphanage when he was 18. At that time, Xiao Fen was only 13 or 14 years old, and she was still a yellow-haired girl, but now Xiao Fen has become a decent beauty, and the gap is still very obvious. Xiao Fen smiled and said, It's me, why are you so surprised? Zhao Hao laughed and said, It's really a big 18 woman. At that time, you were yellow and thin, and short. You looked like a tomboy every day. I didn't expect you to become so beautiful now. Xiao Fen replied shyly, Brother Zhao Hao, don't praise me. I have a sister-in-law here, I can't be considered pretty. As she said, she couldn't help but look at Claire, and the envy on her face was even more expressive. Zhao Hao smiled and said, Don't be so arrogant, you are also a beautiful woman out of a million. Xiao Fen was embarrassed not knowing how to speak, and suddenly received a call. She picked up the phone and listened, her face immediately became anxious, and she said to everyone, the owner of the restaurant called and said that the hotel's wiring was aging, and the power was skipped. It can't be repaired today, and it has to wait for tomorrow, so it can't be opened. Hey! Zhao Hao blurted out, then we have to find another place. Xiao Fen said anxiously, now it's time for dinner, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find a box temporarily. As soon as Charlie heard this, he was about to call Mr. Orville to ask if there were any boxes in Classic Mansion. At this time, a black Mercedes car stopped beside everyone. The window of the Mercedes car was lowered, and Charlie glanced at it and recognized the man driving. This person is Zhang Ming, who took the initiative to organize a gathering in the group today. However, Charlie didn't have much friendship with him. Zhang Ming was dressed in a suit and leather shoes with a slightly fat figure. When he saw the crowd, he stopped the car, poked his head out of the car, and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone has been waiting for a long time." With that said, with a arrogant and complacent look between his eyebrows, he deliberately explained, "Hey, there is a traffic jam on the road. It was delayed for a while, and I am late." Someone exclaimed and said, "Zhang Ming, you all drive Mercedes? When did you buy it?" Zhang Ming laughed and said, "I just bought it 2 days ago." Charlie suddenly realized it. No wonder this guy was so active in organizing parties. It turned out to be showing off his childhood friends who just mentioned a new car and wanted to find him. At this time, someone asked, "Zhang Ming, what model is this car?" "A lot of money, right?" Zhang Ming smiled triumphantly, and pretended to be modest, and said, "Oh, it's just a Mercedes E300L. It's not a good car, it's just over 500,000. "Oh!" everyone exclaimed. Someone said, "Oh, Zhang Ming, you are too good. You have only been out of society for a few years, so you can afford such an expensive car. Yet, we are still taking the bus, and you are already on the big run. It's really more than human to throw away. That's more people to die than people to shop around." Oh, one meaning. To be honest, the children who come out of the orphanage are basically helpless people. Their starting point is much lower than most people. If others start from zero, then they start from negative. Up to now, most of the children who came out of the orphanage in the same period of the year are still struggling with food and clothing. They will not have any good jobs, let alone good opportunities, so everyone basically all are pretty poor. Except for Charlie and Zhang Ming, none of the other orphanage friends can afford a car. So when everyone saw Zhang Ming buying a Mercedes, they were very envious and admired. Zhang Ming smiled triumphantly, waved his hand and said, "It's okay, it's all small money to me, it's not worth mentioning." As he said, he suddenly saw Charlie standing in the crowd. His face changed slightly. Unexpectedly, Charlie's rival was actually one step ahead of him. When he was in the orphanage, he looked down on people like Charlie, and wanted to teach Charlie many times, but because he couldn't beat him, he was finally repaired by Charlie. With the increase in frequency, Charlie has become his psychological shadow, and he still can't let go of it. He once thought that even if Charlie was able to fight when he was in the orphanage, as long as he entered society, people like Charlie would definitely get mixed up very miserably. After he glanced at Charlie's clothes, he couldn't help but sneered in his heart. He was dressed in miscellaneous goods, and he didn't know anything about it. However, when he saw Claire, his eyes lit up, and he was suddenly shocked. He has never seen such a beautiful woman in real life. This made him wonder, could this beauty be a small partner in the orphanage? But no matter how he thought, he couldn't think of any memory fragments related to this beauty. Thinking of this, Zhang Ming still had a smile on his face, first with a bit of arrogance, and said hello to Charlie. "Yeah, isn't this Charlie? Long time no see." Charlie smiled and said, "Big Pocket." Big Pocket is Zhang Ming's nickname in the orphanage at the time, because this kid is fat and can eat, so he likes to amplify bad forts. The key is that this kid forts. He never pays attention to the occasion. It is used when playing games in class, when eating, and when sleeping. At that time, the little friends were troubled by him, and he was miserable, so he left with nickname, called Big Bull. Zhongming didn't expect Charlie to mention his previous nickname as soon as he came up, and suddenly his face felt a little uncontrollable. Before he could say anything, a young man behind him said displeasedly, "Hey, Charlie, how do you talk? How dare you call Mr. Zhongming's nickname? Mr. Zhongming is now an executive of a listed group. You have to be respectful when you speak." Charlie glanced at the person who spoke, and vaguely remembered that the other person was Ronald, who was one of Zhongming's dog legs back then. He didn't expect that after so many years, he would still follow Zhongming. So, he frowned slightly, and said faintly, "I'm sorry, I have called him a big A** since he was a child, and he has become used to it." Zhongming glanced at Claire, and found that Claire looked a little bit uncontrollable about his nickname. He was immediately a little angry, and counterattacked, "Charlie, look at you like this. It's not bad to be a guy. What car did you drive over?" Ronald immediately took the conversation, laughed, and said, "Oh, Mr. Zhongming, what you said is a bit too much. I heard that Charlie went to be a live-in son-in-law, and he was supported by his wife. It would be nice to have a hot meal. You also asked what car they drove over. Didn't you slap them on purpose? Oh, slip of the tongue." Zhongming slapped his head and deliberately said, "I'm sorry Charlie, I'm a bit straight, I hope you don't mind." That's what he said, but he was already laughing in his heart. "Charlie, Charlie, let me see how you step down." Charlie smiled and said, "Big bullshit pocket, I always thought that you love to bullshit because your intestines are straight. I didn't expect you to speak straight. You use the trachea to speak, just like your intestines. The pipes are all straight." When everyone heard his ridicule, they laughed suddenly. Zhongming's face became very ugly by the way. He really didn't expect that when he said something straight, Charlie caught the handle, it was a sarcasm. Zhongming's face suddenly became difficult to look. He couldn't care about being angry now, mainly because he was afraid that Claire would have a bad impression of himself because of Charlie's words. So, he hurriedly looked at Claire and asked with a smile, "Oh, this beauty looks a little strange. Maybe it's because I haven't returned to the orphanage for so many years. Why can't I recognize you? Can't tell me, what's your name?" Xiao Fen on the side said dissatisfied, "Hey, Zhongming, do you have any insight? Do you know who this is?" "This is my sister-in-law, my brother Charlie's wife." "What?" Zhongming was struck by lightning and killed him. He couldn't believe that this super beautiful woman who made her look at him was actually Charlie Wasteful's wife. He couldn't help but look at Charlie, and found that Charlie's clothes all over his body were not as expensive as his own coat. This Armani coat of his own, let alone buy him, and spare half. Looking at the beautiful and moving Claire standing tall and tall next to Charlie, he couldn't help but feel extremely annoyed. Oh shit! Claire is such a beautiful woman, with an exquisite figure, she is simply the best among the best, and she is 100 times, 1,000 times or even 10,000 times stronger than the women he has ever seen. As a result, she turned out to be Charlie's wife. God is so blind. When he thought that Charlie could find such a beautiful wife, Zhang Ming felt even more unbalanced. With a smirk on his face, he sarcastically said to Charlie, "Charlie, I don't think we two have seen each other in a few years. You have changed quite a bit." "Yes, it looks like oily noodles. It's really a standard little white face, natural for soft rice." As he said, he looked at Charlie up and down, and pretended to be ashamed and said, "If I knew it was so easy to be a live-in son-in-law, then why have I worked so hard in the past few years? Look at me. After being broken, I earned the position of director. Compared with you, the soft rice king who can only eat and wait to die, I am really ashamed." The reason why Zhang Ming was so cynic on purpose was that he wanted to show off his identity and status in front of Charlie and others, so as to attack Charlie. After saying this, he couldn't help looking at the young and charming Xiao Fen. Now that such a super beauty like Claire is out of play, Xiao Fen, a tender little sister who can pinch the water, can still develop well. When was in the orphanage before, why didn't I realize that this little girl, Xiao Fen, was so beautiful? If I had known it earlier, I should have dealt with her in the orphanage back then. At this moment, the few people behind him laughed at Charlie when he heard him ridicule Charlie. But Charlie still stood calmly in place, without any angry expression on his face. Claire was a little angry, and said coldly, "This gentleman, my husband, didn't recruit or provoke you. Why do you speak rudely and ridicule him? Besides, what does it have to do with you whether my husband eats leftovers? Did he eat a grain of your rice?" Zhang Ming didn't expect Charlie's wife to be so towards him. He suddenly felt that God was unfair. Why is there no such a wife when he is so good and so hard? Is it true to the old saying that a good man has no good wife? Good wife but no good guy? So he got even worse in his heart, sneered, and said, "Beauty, I am not ridiculing your husband, I am telling the truth. A beautiful woman like you, marrying this kind of rag, it is really a flower on the cow dung." Claire said coldly, "You are an outsider in the matter between me and my husband, and you don't have any qualifications to judge. It's enough to manage your own affairs." Zhang Ming was choked and speechless, and Claire was so beautiful. The key is that she still loves her husband so much, and is so envious of her husband. At this time, Xiao Fen couldn't help but scolded angrily, "Hey! Zhang Ming! What do you mean by this person? Did my brother Charlie recruit you? You are here to be sarcastic to him. I see you as a human being. Too much time. Nothing has changed from before." When Zhang Ming heard this, his heart suddenly became annoyed. Why is this Xiao Fen facing Charlie like this? What is so good about this hanging wire? Why are all the beautiful women facing him? Claire, as his wife, is fine with him. This Xiao Fen didn't have a relationship with him for no reason, so why is she doing this? Moreover, the more Zhang Ming looked at Xiao Fen, the more he felt that this girl was really the best. At the age of early 20s, the figure is already so tall, and this is what should be convex and curled, feel impeccable no matter how you look at it. Moreover, the appearance of pouting in anger is even more confusing, and he can't wait to kiss them in his arms immediately. It would be really cool if he could get started with such a young girl. So, he hurriedly said to Xiaofen with a grin, "Oh, Xiaofen, don't get me wrong. Did I make a joke with Charlie? You don't know the two of us. We used to make jokes a lot, but in fact our relationship is very good." Xiaofen snorted and turned her head to ignore him. At this moment, a middle-aged woman with grey hair and kind face walked out of the entrance of the orphanage. Seeing everyone, she couldn't help asking, "Oh, didn't you go to the restaurant? Why are you still standing at the door?" "Hey!" Everyone hurriedly looked back, and were pleasantly surprised to find that the speaker was Aunt Lena, who had recovered. At this time, Aunt Lena had a very kind smile on her face. She looked at everyone, and she was also very pleased, especially seeing Charlie, not only comforted, but also a little grateful. For a while, everyone also looked at Aunt Lena with eager and excited eyes. Charlie has the blessings of the 9 profound heaven scriptures, so it can be seen at a glance that Aunt Lena's condition at this time has been completely cured and her physical condition is much better. He felt extremely relieved in his heart, and at the same time he couldn't help sighing that if he had obtained the 9 profound heaven scriptures earlier, Aunt Lena might not have to undergo surgery for a kidney transplant. A rejuvenation pill would be enough to cure all her illnesses and also make her a few years younger or even a teenager. The same is true for Aunt Lena. For her, every child in front of her is actually the same as her own, and she feels extremely cherished, and all her generation's time has been dedicated to the orphanage. Although she had never thought of asking these children to report their gratitude and be filial to herself, at this time, seeing everyone coming to visit her, she nodded her heads and felt very pleased. All the friends from the orphanage all stepped forward to greet Aunt Lena. Some people here come from the bottom of their hearts, while others just take a form. But even so, Aunt Lena was very grateful. After all, this group of children can still remember her, which made her very satisfied. At this moment, Charlie also stepped forward and said, "Aunt Lena, congratulations on your recovery and discharge." Claire smiled sweetly on the side and said, "Aunt Lena, congratulations on your recovery." After seeing Charlie and Claire, Aunt Lena burst into a happy smile on her kind face, saying, "Charlie, Claire, dear, I haven't seen you two for a few months. My mind is broken. Are you two okay now?" To be honest, there are many children in the orphanage, and she treats all the children as her own children, but if she wants to say who she loves, Charlie is the first person to do her part. When Charlie was in the orphanage, he was the most obedient, sensible, and considerate child. Moreover, although the other children who went out from the orphanage would come back to see and occasionally sponsor the orphanage, they have never been like Charlie and have been doing their best to help the orphanage. Especially when she was ill at the beginning, the huge amount of medical expenses was prohibitive even for her family. Unexpectedly, at that time, Charlie alone would rise to the challenge. Had it not been for him, she would have died a long time ago. Moreover, she was lucky enough to be sent to Union Hospital for treatment. Thanks to Charlie's help in raising money, Aunt Lena was also full of gratitude to him from the bottom of her heart. She felt the same for Claire in her heart. If Claire hadn't helped Charlie to raise money everywhere, she wouldn't be able to sustain it. So, Aunt Lena looked at Claire just as she looked at her daughter-in-law, and praised, "Claire, you are more beautiful than before. During this time, Charlie didn't cause you trouble, right? Auntie's most optimistic couple must be respectful and get along well, and don't let other people gossip. Hearing what Aunt Lena said, Claire hurriedly said, Aunt Lena, don't worry, I and Charlie have a good relationship. After speaking, Claire then said apologetically, Aunt Lena, after you went to East Cliff for treatment, I have never had time to visit you in East Cliff. If Charlie told me, I would not know that you were cured and discharged. Back to Oris Hill, I am really embarrassed, Aunt Lena said with emotion, after I fell ill, your couple has been busy in the hospital. If you two hadn't helped raise money, Auntie might have died in critical condition, as she said. Aunt Lena's eyes reddened and she choked up, especially Claire, while you were busy with the affairs of the Wilson family, you also have to come and take care of me. Auntie has always been very grateful and feels very guilty. I dragged down you couple. If you are really embarrassed, it should be the aunt who said it. Claire hurriedly comforted, Aunt Lena, don't forget, I am Charlie's wife, and you are Charlie's benefactor, that is, my benefactor. Aunt Lena looked at Claire and was deeply moved. Seeing Claire again this time, Aunt Lena felt that she was a little different from the past. Although Claire and Charlie often visited her in the past, Claire still vaguely felt a little alienated from Charlie, obviously because they had no emotional foundation. But this time, the two have been holding hands, and it seems that their relationship has also improved a lot. In the past, Aunt Lena could often hear the rumors spread outside, so she was always worried about the relationship between the two, for fear that someday Charlie would divorce Claire and be driven out of the Wilson family. At this time, seeing the two people's relationship has improved, her heart settled down. As everyone present listened to this conversation, they couldn't help being surprised. Only then did they know that Charlie and his wife had done so much for Aunt Lena while Aunt Lena was sick. Charlie was very humble. He took good care of Aunt Lena. He just wanted to repay the other party with all his heart, and he never thought of relying on this to show off in front of others. However, Zhang Ming on the side was depressed. The reason why everyone can come together to visit Aunt Lena today is that he is the real initiator and organizer. Moreover, he was thinking that he is now a successful person anyway, just by taking advantage of this reception banquet, he will put pressure in front of everyone and enjoy the compliments and complacency of this group of people. By the way, he will talk Xiao Fen as a young gentleman and try to develop it. Unexpectedly, Charlie was robbed of the limelight by a guy like Charlie, and he turned into a background board. Thinking of this, Zhang Ming looked at Charlie with a bit of resentment. At this time, Aunt Lena shook Claire's hand and said with great relief, Claire, you and Charlie are not too young anymore. It's time to consider having a child. The group of children they left from the orphanage back then here, Charlie got married alone, and the rest are still bachelors. As an aunt, I can't wait to hug a godson. Claire blushed all at once. She and Charlie have been married for more than 3 years, but no one has ever urged her to have a baby. After all, the relatives around her looked down on Charlie a little, and wished she divorced Charlie. How could they let Charlie have children with her? However, she was suddenly urged to have a child by Aunt Lena. In addition to being shy in her heart, she suddenly had some strange feelings. Claire will soon be 26 years old, at the optimal age for childbearing, and for a girl of this age, the motherhood and maternal love in her heart have already begun to faintly breed. Take Claire, for example. Occasionally when she sees other people with children, she will feel that maternal love is overflowing in her heart, and even start to think about when she can have a baby of her own. However, because there are so many things in the family, she has never dared to consider this issue in depth. So she said with some shame, "Auntie Lena, we haven't thought about having children yet, because I have just started a business and the company has only just improved a bit, and it has been the busiest time recently." At this time, Xiao Fen looked at Claire's eyes, a bit more envy, and a bit more lost in his heart. She has liked Charlie since she was a child. When she was very young, she dreamed of marrying Charlie and being Charlie's bride. She has not forgotten this dream until now, but now it seems that she has no chance. That's why she envied Claire even more, because in her opinion, Claire found the best man in the world, so she is the happiest woman in the world. Aunt Lena smiled slightly at this time and said, "Career is important, but family is also important sometimes. As women, we should not have children too late, otherwise it will affect our body." Claire blushed and nodded. Xiao Fen said with embarrassment at this time, "Auntie Lena, the owner of the old restaurant called just now to say that there was a problem with the circuit of their restaurant and it cannot be opened today. We can only change the place for dinner." Aunt Lena smiled and said, "In fact, it doesn't matter whether you eat or not. I am already very happy to see everyone. There are so many people here that I haven't seen for a long time." Zhang Ming, who has been neglected all the time, immediately shined upon hearing this. He immediately took a step forward and blurted out, "Aunt Lena, I will arrange dinner for everyone tonight." As he said, he immediately took out his cell phone and made a call, and then said to everyone, "Everyone, I have booked a place at our 5-star Hyatt Hotel in Oris Hill. Let's go over now." Hearing that Zhang Ming had booked a place at the 5-star Hyatt Hotel, everyone present was suddenly surprised. Someone embarrassedly said, "The Hyatt Hotel is a 5-star hotel. It's too extravagant if we go there for dinner. It's not less than 20,000 or 30,000 after a meal. Yet, if you are AA, it will cost 1 or 2,000 per person to spread it equally. Our salary level cannot afford such high consumption." Hearing this, other people couldn't help showing approval. Those who enter and leave 5-star hotels are basically high-class people, and only they have the confidence to go to such a place to enjoy. And among the people present, because they are all orphans, generally have low education and no background, they can't talk about career success. Most of the jobs that everyone is looking for are those at the lower level. Many people's salary for a month is not enough to meet the various expenses of their daily lives. They worry about firewood, rice, oil, and salt all day. Therefore, when they heard that they were going to a 5-star hotel for dinner, everyone was a little worried, fearing that they would be stretched because of insufficient financial resources. Zhang Ming smiled at this time, patted his chest generously and said, "Don't worry, you guys, I will pay half of this meal by myself, and you will pay the other half together. It is estimated that it will cost a few hundred per person. How about it?" Hearing what he said, many people were relieved. Zhang Ming will pay half of it by himself, which really relieved everyone's pressure. Someone couldn't help saying, "Zhang Ming, How embarrassed to let you do half of the job." Zhang Ming waved his hand indifferently, and said with a smile, "Today is mainly for Aunt Lena. It doesn't matter if I spend more money." In fact, everyone did not know that Zhang Ming happened to have a budget for a company to entertain customers. What he thought was that he would pay 20,000 to 30,000 for this meal, and he would pay half of it on the surface, and let others pay the other half. At that time, he will issue an invoice and go to the company for reimbursement. Not only could he get back half of what he spent, but could also earn back half of what everyone paid back. For example, for a meal of 30,000, he would pay 15,000, and rest would pay 15,000. Afterwards, he will go to the company to reimburse 30,000. Not only would he earn face and favors in front of everyone, he also will make a net profit of 15,000. Money. Why not? Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.